Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited for today's call, right? I guess we're maybe just less now than 30 days away from the launch of Saturn One, and so I know the entire call today is really focused on lots of different aspects of Saturn One. There's an agenda we've been floating around in trading that covers everything from the audits, which I know we really wanted to focus on because they're just being released and produced there. Wanted to spend a little bit of time with you to talk about the timeline and kind of what needs to happen in fairly quick succession to make the expected launch date, maybe confirm the launch date. Um, and then just lots of maybe questions if we can get to them about node operators and process and the test net on Hoodie and how we're going to do that, and just kind of sequencing with the deployment and the ODAO, and just a ton of questions for it. So hopefully you've got some time to spend with the community today, because there's a lot of questions, and I encourage everybody listening to the call to just raise your hand too, come up on stage and ask questions. But Langers, does it sound like a fun topic to start with?
Yeah, sounds awesome. Let's do it.
Okay. Okay. Well, maybe let's just start real quickly. Maybe walk us through a little bit of the timeline here, and if you can, talk just a little bit, if anything, what if anything was done over the break. I know everybody was kind of taking the time off, as everybody was well deserved here, and but maybe bring us up to speed since last we talked. Tell us maybe what has happened, and then tell us just in brief brevity what needs to happen between here and the launch date.
Yeah, cool, awesome. So yeah, the last 4 weeks, even with the Christmas break, have been very busy. Uh, a few of us have spent a bit of time working over Christmas. So we've been working with Cantina. So the audits were kind of like ongoing. So we were finishing up Cantina. So Cantina were working on their fixed checks. So essentially, they had reported the issues, and then we fixed them, and then they had to just confirm that they were resolved. So they were working through their fixed checks, and we were just supporting them on that. And then we've been subsequently working, kind of reviewing their final report, giving them some little bits of feedback, and then they've come back with their final report. So Cantina has actually literally this morning been published on the website, so that report is now live. Working about to finish off their report. So we had kind of like essentially 2 rounds with them. In the second round, they were finishing up. They worked they worked over Christmas to get the audit finished. So it's a big thank you to the auditors from Baosec for working over Christmas, basically. And Kane was working with them. He spent most of his Christmas working with them to to support them, basically, to answer their questions and to work on fixing some of that stuff ahead of coming back into the new year. So that and that's gone really well. So they've given us their report. We were kind of like fixing as we went anyway with Balsec, but there were kind of like one or two small things that Kane's been working on this week, and then we're getting them to kind of like close up their report, essentially. So put on there the resolved fixed check stuff. So Kane's been working on that this week, and hopefully we should have that finished by tomorrow. At worst case Monday, but I think we're aiming to do it for tomorrow. Actually, the Sigma, I was going to publish Sigma Prime's report, which they finished ages ago, but when we actually reviewed their final report, it still had loads of stuff open. So we need to just go back to them and make sure that they're happy with their stuff. So that'll probably be today and tomorrow, and maybe a bit of start of next week. So hopefully we can get Sigma Prime report out next week, earlier next week. So that's the audits, essentially. So they're all basically complete. those last fixed checks basically are the things that we're getting sorted. The other thing that we were doing kind of over Christmas or just before Christmas and during Christmas and then subsequent to the break is deploying DevNet 6. So we deployed DevNet 6 to Hoodie, actually. We got it set up and we transitioned it to Saturn. Internally, like we did, I think we mentioned DevNet 6, but we didn't actually put it out to everybody. I think a few people are kind of like aware of it, but I can give more details on that in this call if you want. But basically, we've been going through and doing like the full suite of tests on DevNet 6, which is on Hoodie. Testing has gone kind of like generally really well. Hoodie is still proving to be a bit difficult. This time it's kind of like the exit queue. Exits take a long time, which obviously makes the testing cycle quite long or difficult. But we are getting through the tests and everything is looking really good. We did have a gnarly kind of like balance submission bug that took a bit of time to track down this week. But that's all good now, and we're really confident in that now. We've been testing V11, which is like the reward tree spec. Again, that's proving a bit of a pain to verify, but it is. We are getting there with the V11 reward tree, and we'll be doing more of that kind of in the next like couple of days and over the weekend as well. So basically to kind of like summarize the last 4 weeks, it's been audit fixed checks, audit, reviewing their reports ready for publishing, DevNet 6, a whole heap of testing, and then working with Mav on like the marketing side of things as well.
Okay, yeah, we want to explore each of those maybe in a little bit more detail, but maybe continue with the timeline. And can you just maybe project a little bit forward? Today's the 14th of January, at least where I'm living. I guess it's the 15th for you, but are we still looking at February 9th for the launch, or is it still a go? What needs to happen between here and there?
Yeah, so what needs to happen in the meantime is obviously we need to lock down these these reports. I'm sorry, what's
Yeah, Langers, grab some water there. It sounds like you're fighting something like I am too, a little bit of cold or something.
That's good. I'm going to have a squeaky voice now. So what needs to happen is we need to lock down these reports, and get them published. As I said, BALSEC is very, very close. Sigma Prime, we just need to get them to update their report. So those two things need to happen. We need to finish off the testing. As I said, we've gotten through most of the testing. There's just really kind of like the V11 testing that we need to wrap up and make sure that's kind of like solid. We need to deploy to testnet, and then we need to we need to deploy to testnet, and that's kind of like a smoke test, making sure that everything's kind of running okay. That is going to be interesting because, yeah, as I said, Hoodie is a little bit interesting at the moment. But we'll do that, and then we've got and then finally the vote on end of things, which is basically deploying the contracts, raising the ODAL vote, and there's like a week delay on the ODAL vote, and then the ODAL can vote, but obviously we'll get them lined up so that voting process will hopefully only take a couple of days. And then the the upgrade is in place, and then we can just trigger the upgrade. So yeah, they're the things we need to do in between. I would say that in general we are looking good. Unfortunately, there are two things that I'm probably worried about. The first thing is just making sure that we get through the V11 testing, but that is looking positive at the moment. My biggest thing actually is when I chose the 9th of February as the date, I was trying to kind of like minimize the delay, but I missed a very important piece of information, and that is that 4 days after that there is a report interval, and that is not ideal. In fact, that is very unadvisable because we can't do a V10 interval after Saturn is launched. So we have to do a V11, and if we do a V11, that's only 4 days. And we need to, there are checks before we do that, the V11 reward tree interval. There are checks that we need to do in the lead up. And I don't think we're going to have time to do it in those 4 days. So although it's killing me, I think we might need to push it to the 16th of February because of that, because it has to be after the interval. But if we do it after the interval, it means that we've got 4 weeks to test out. We can run like a tree gen tester to make sure that the numbers are going to be right on mainnet, and that's obviously a really important aspect of it. So although I think we're doing pretty well for the 9th of February, I actually think we're going to end up releasing on the 16th of February because of that interval, because we have to avoid that interval.
Yeah, thanks for kind of sharing that. And I could imagine all these, to me, it's always, the rocket motif here. It's kind of mission control, go, no go. And yeah, I could see that being one possible conflict, that maybe that does be a little safer window for launch, because then if there is a problem that isn't corrected, you kind of have more of the 28-day period afterwards to fix it instead of just a 4-day period. But uh, we'll kind of leave it to you to figure out. But so maybe let's go through all these now that you provided a little bit of a timeline here. Let's go through them and just maybe one by one and take a look at it. And the first one I want to take a look at a little bit is the audits, right? So you mentioned that Bell Security is audit is up. I saw that just about an hour ago. A lot of people in trading were refreshing the page, and so it's 40 pages long. It's going to take a little bit for the community to kind of read through that. But you mentioned, I think, that the at least Sigma Prime, it's done, but they have to update some of the language in their report, and then you're finishing. I guess it's Cantinas is the one that you're still working on over the weekend.
No, it's the other way around. So
Other way around. Okay, too bad.
Cantina is on the website now, I think. I'll just
Got it. Yeah, yep.
triple check, but
Yeah, no, you're right. I said it wrong.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cantina is on the website now. Balsec we're working on today, tomorrow, worst case Monday, but ideally finished up tomorrow. Sigma Prime, I've only just found out that some of the it's basically some of the issues still have open on them rather than resolved. So we just need to go through and double check those with them and make sure that they're happy to change the report to resolved. So that's the idea with Sigma Prime. So Sigma Prime, I haven't spoken to Sigma Prime about this yet, so I don't know the turnaround time for them in terms of capacity, but hopefully we can get it done kind of like early next week. And then so that's the audits.
Was there anything in the audits? Obviously we only have access to one right now, but is there anything you want to call attention to the community, or anything you want to discuss about them, or?
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh yeah, in terms of like the audits, so Sigma Prime kind of did like a change audit. So they did um, like a Houston to Saturn change audit. Um, it was kind of like a smaller audit, but it still covered Saturn. It didn't cover anything else. Cantina and Balsec did actually look quite wide on the protocol because they're new to the protocol as well. They wanted to go quite wide, and we also gave them enough time so that they could go a bit wider. And that was mainly to just make sure that um, although Saturn is relatively well, I'd say the trouble is with Saturn touches every part of Rocket Pool, so that's why you almost have to do like a full audit of Rocket Pool to cover everything. But their audits were a bit longer, and so but both Cantina and Balsec were and Super Prime was worked with, but Cantina and Balsec, they're new to our kind of like roster, and we were very impressed with them. So um, they both came at it from very different angles. Um, they were actually working on them commit, and they found very very similar issues. Um, Balsec, you'll kind of like see when you see their report. Uh, Balsec are almost exhaustive. So if you think the Cantina report is big, you'll see the Balsec report. They are absolutely exhaustive. So yeah, so it's been really good working with those guys actually, and so yeah, we're very impressed with them. Uh, they've given us an awful lot of confidence in terms of moving forward with the release and all that sort of stuff. Um,
Hmm.
there were there were kind of highs found in both reports. One of the ones that both Cantina and Balsec, probably the main one actually, that Balsec and Cantina found, we actually found before, just after we gave them the commit. So we were still kind of like wrapping up some of our review, and when we gave them the commit, and we found that the one of the main issues um, that they found as well. Um, but then they raised some other things as well, a lot of mediums and that sort of thing, and Balsec in particular found a number of kind of like high ones as well. So yeah, so no, it's been an excellent process, and yeah, we're very very confident going into the release that we're in a good spot now. After going through that process, Saturn is the biggest release we've ever done. Apart from the actual launch, the mainnet launch, and there's a lot of moving parts to Saturn. There's a lot kind of going on, and the audit teams have done a fantastic job with getting across how everything works, and making sure that they've kind of been rigorous in every aspect.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for kind of taking the time to explain that on there, and um, so lots of interesting things. I think it'd be good to kind of read through the reports. So yeah, to the degree that they could be released, please do so, and maybe kind of ping the Discord for those that kind of want to read through it, because I do kind of recognize that the closer we get to Saturn here, just the amount of extensive changes to the code that are in there. So I for one, I'm going to take my time reading through those things, and I guess maybe two follow up questions to that. I guess one of those things that typically follows the audits is a reissuance or update of the code bounty program through Immutify. Can you give an update on that? And then second follow-up question is, based on the fix checks that you put in, are you feeling confident that all the findings were resolved to the team's satisfaction?
Yeah, we've been tracking all of the issues, and we've got like a big spreadsheet of that they're ticking off every single one of them. So no, we're very, very comfortable. As I said, there were a couple of small things that came working on this week, but um, we've either acknowledged some. I think there were like two that we needed to just address in code, um, and then the rest we've kind of acknowledged. They were fine. So no, we're comfortable. We're comfortable with the fixed checks and all of that sort of thing. What was the other question? I think you.
Immunify.
Oh, Immunify, yeah. So we have to wait until the reports are all published. So that's why we're trying to lock down those reports. We have to do that so that um, um, uh, we we usually wait until all of the reports are published. Let me review. I might see if we can do it beforehand. I think the main reason is just so that any actually no, the reason why we publish first is because there are issues in there that we've acknowledged, and if we don't have the report out, then it's kind of like you get a load of bug bounty um, things that you have to process, and you can't just say, "Oh yeah, look, we've acknowledged that one here, we've acknowledged that one here." I'll kind of review whether we can do it as early as possible, like before the reports are published. But I think generally we like to do it after the reports are published. I'll kind of double check though with the team, see what they think.
Okay. Okay. So just a reminder for everyone here, feel free if you have questions, raise your hand and feel free to come up on stage. Let me move forward though, because I don't see anybody raising their hand. And just let's just talk a little bit about the settings. So one of the things that did happen, you didn't, I don't think you called out, was um, we had passed an RPIP to pause or close the mini pool validator queue, right? And we were all kind of watching over the break the final mini pools process through, right? So that had completed. The exiting mini pools had filled up the rETH contract. There's a change that came in maybe a few updates back, maybe it was with Houston, that actually redirects 1% or redirects the ETH from exiting mini pools to be held as a liquidity reserve in the rETH contract, right? And it's set for 1%. You want to talk just a little bit about where we are and kind of what the queue looks like now and how much node operator demand we have kind of being built up here in anticipation for Saturn?
Yeah, that's actually pretty exciting. So yeah, the DAO, yeah, it was a snapshot vote, wasn't it? A snapshot vote, or was it a sentiment poll? Anyway, a snapshot vote probably. Um, for closing off the mini pool queue. I think it was a snapshot vote actually. Mini pool queue, and then the Security Council closed the basically stopped no deposits. And so no new mini pools were being created. We had a queue of something like, I think it was like 150,
Mm-hmm.
mini pools or something like that. And then it started kind of like going down as deposits came in. As deposits came in, it was kind of like slowly coming down. I think we've had um, a big swing in kind of like demand over the last um, like few weeks, pretty much since we shut down the queue. So, I think there are a couple of factors, but the node operators have been pretty diligent with capturing the ARB on the discount. We had some demand flowing back into the deposit pool, demand in general coming back, which meant that the rETH was in a discount, swung back to basically zero. Now, the great thing about the discount not being there is that there's no ARB. So it means that our withdrawal liquidity started filling up. Um, and so as of today, I think we're at 100% of the target.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think it's like 4,000 ETH in the
Yep.
withdrawal liquidity, which is fantastic. Um, we've also cleared, we've had some pretty big deposits over the last little while. Oh, the other thing actually is because there's no discount, the deposits. When I say deposits, people aren't buying it from buying rETH from the secondary market anymore. It's swinging back to coming from the protocol, and so yeah, we've had some pretty big deposits come through, and most of those have been clearing the queue. So as of today, there are 0 mini pools, which again is fantastic. That's like the perfect start to Saturn. Um, and then now we're starting to the deposit pool is filling up, which is also great. I think was there about 4,000 in there this morning, or yesterday
Yeah.
there was about 4,000.
Two in the node operator queue, there's about 2,000 ETH, and there's
Oh, 2,000.
4,000 ETH in the rETH contract. But
That's it. Yeah,
but that's just for the liquidity for rETH redemptions. The mega pools
yeah,
can't access that, right?
yeah. No, that's right. Yeah. So the 2,000 is the deposit pool available for mega pools for Saturn. Um, and so the other thing is now that the withdrawal threshold has been reached, that means that um, so the withdrawal liquidity at the moment is being filled from exits and rewards coming back from node
Hmm.
operators.
Hmm.
And now that the withdrawal liquidity buffer is full, that actually overspills into the deposit pool. So we might actually see the deposit pool start going up faster um, because of that process. Um, so basically, we're in a very good spot for Saturn.
Yeah.
We have deep withdrawal liquidity. We have a deposit pool um, ready for the migration. So this is fantastic news for us at the moment. Um, Obviously, it'd be good to build up a bit more of a reserve in the deposit pool. We can also talk about. I think there's been some talk from the community about increasing the deposit pool size, which I think is good. And because at the moment it's 18,000 ETH is the limit on the deposit pool, and then after that point you can't actually mint rETH anymore. The reason why we have that is so that it doesn't drain the or doesn't drag the rETH yield down, because ETH in the deposit pool is unproductive. But because we've got Saturn coming, we want to try and capture as much ETH as possible in the deposit pool so that we can get everyone to migrate. And the reason why we need a lot of ETH in there is because Saturn megapools are much more capital efficient. So our node operators, as they migrate, they'll be doing 8 ETH mini pools, but then they'll be doing 4 ETH megapool validators, which means it's a lot more capital efficient. So we need a lot more rETH or ETH from rETH depositors. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so
No, that last point, I mean, it's like, I mean, it sounds great to say, hey, we've got 2,000 ETH already in the node operator deposit pool, right? That's kind of just waiting to be staked, if you will, right? But that's only roughly 76 validators under the mega pool, under the 4 ETH mega pool, right? And so, I mean, in the first couple of blocks after Saturn One launches, that's it, right? We've we've depleted that again, and we're albeit maybe let's say 4 weeks away from launch, and I expect that with the exiting validators, right? There's still a couple hundred that have exited the beacon chain already and are waiting for disbursement, right? So they would spill over to that node operator demand and the continuing demand for rETH, right? I expect that number to probably be 2 or 3 times that yeah, the size of it, right? It'd be great if we push that 18,000 ETH limit, right? To increase the deposit pool limit, but all of that's going to be gobbled up within, literally less than an epoch after Saturn One launch, right? It just the amount of
Yeah,
efficiency that a mega pool provides now basically provides for unlimited rETH minting, right? Like the big problem going forward is just going to be rETH demand, I think.
exactly. Yeah. So I think, Rocket Pool, being a decentralized protocol, we've always been a bit hampered by the fact that we need, because we rely on decentralized node operators, we rely on a decentralized node operator network to deposit ETH, um, and the capital efficiency wasn't quite high enough to meet the demand at times. Um, but going forward with Saturn, that's not going to be a problem. Um, the capital efficiency is so high that, there's and also sets the stage for higher capital efficiency as well, with the kind of bonding curve and that sort of thing. So yeah, that it definitely changes the game in terms of our ability to scale.
Yeah, let me ask some questions that kind of tie into this thing because there's lots of concerns and questions for it, and some of the community members had submitted these questions, in the last couple of days. I guess the first one that Ethereum Bullet asked is, can you remind the community as to why mega pools are so much better than mini pools, and I guess maybe ask it in two different versions, like why should a node operator exit their mini pool and form a mega pool? And then two, if I'm an rETH holder, why do I care that Rocket Pool is going to mega pools?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, well, and the yeah, there's actually a few different parties, and I'm try to probably go through each of them. But as a node operator, so mega pools are better than mini pools because in most cases you will earn more. Um, that's like a key thing. The other thing is you're going from 8 ETH to 4 ETH validators. So your 8 ETH, your 8 ETH that you're spending at the moment, it gives you one validator. But going forward, that 8 ETH will give you two validators. Um, Now, with two validators, that's an extra chance to get, all of the MEV, and it's not as lucrative as it used to be. But the essentially, it's more chances to get blocks, which are and sync committees and all that sort of stuff, which earn you more money. So on aggregate, you actually earn more from that perspective as well. Mega pools are particularly for people with a lot of mini pools. Mega pools are much more efficient in the sense that at the moment, each mini pool is a separate smart contract, and so you have to interact with that smart contract. So when you get your rewards, you have to interact with every single mini pool contract, and that obviously costs gas. But with mega pools, it's just interacting with one smart contract, so you just claim all of your rewards in one go. So they're more gas efficient. So just to summarize, for node operators, you earn more uh, from it. You earn more in like two or three different ways. Particularly, actually, if you're staking RPL. RPL is optional; it's an optional collateral. But if you stake RPL, you also get voter share as well, which is a part of the rETH commission. Um, so that's node operators. Then you've got rETH holders. So from an rETH holder perspective, um, it's actually a combination of things, but the main thing that megapools specifically give you is that this capital efficiency, so it's scale. So this really it really comes down to, as I said before, you know, as a decentralized protocol, we've been a bit hampered because of the supply side. Now we're not. So you should always be able to mint rETH when you come to Rocket Pool from now on, which is a key thing. The other thing for particular parties, so I'll say institutions. Institutions is a very broad term, but for institutions, uh, our increased scale means that we're actually a very viable platform for them going forward. They can't usually, most institutions can't use things like CowSwap. I say most. There are some institutions that do, but most of them can't use things like CowSwap and that sort of thing. So they can't swap into rETH. They have to get it from the protocol. And so that's a big thing for us, is just to make sure that we always have that capacity for those larger players who want to take rETH positions by coming directly to the protocol. The other counter to that is also the withdrawal liquidity. So this isn't specific to megapools, but it's specific to Saturn. And Saturn prioritizes withdrawal liquidity. So when you deposit into Saturn, if we haven't met our withdrawal threshold, which is a liquidity buffer that we were talking about earlier, that deposit goes to fulfilling the withdrawal threshold first, before we prioritize growth. So the important factor there is that we're highly prioritizing withdrawal liquidity so that people can exit rETH when they want to, so that it gives rETH holders confidence that they can exit rETH without kind of having to take a hit on the discount, if there is a discount in the market and all of that sort of stuff. So that, from an rETH perspective, that's massive. That's scaling and withdrawal liquidity. And then you've got RPL holders. RPL holders, if they're a node operator, they can obviously earn voter share, which is essentially a fee switch. So they get a part of the rETH commission goes into a pool, and then that's paid out to RPL staking node operators. So that's kind of like a big aspect. rETH holders generally, so there are two things. One is happens straight away, and one happens a little bit later on. So with RPL, because we have this fee switch turned on, there's a much more direct value thesis for Rocket Pool, and because you have guaranteed yield with the voter share. The other aspect is inflation. So currently, inflation for RPL is 5%, but very soon that will be lowered to not 5%. We actually don't know what the final number will be, but I think at the moment in the RPIP it's 1.5%, but it could be 2.5% with there's a bit of discussion around that. But essentially, RPL inflation will be reducing, and so that's an important aspect for RPL holders as well.
Yeah, I guess maybe I'll mention, and it's been Saturn. The whole Saturn upgrade has been kind of a long journey, at least scoping over more than a year, maybe over 2 years if you include the design, right? And and I was reminded by Schifrin earlier today that there's a good explainer that the GMC and the PDAO had put together, and the URL is rp-saturn.webflow.io. That's rp-saturn.webflow.io. And I just encourage everyone to kind of retake a look at that and look at everything. I guess one of the questions that some of the node operators might have right now is I guess we're in a good state in terms of the beacon chain, right? The months ago, the exit queue was literally months long, multiple months long, like 40 days, 60 days, right? And you kind of were exiting in October, anticipating exiting out by December, right? The good news is I looked just yesterday, and the exit queue is basically instantaneous, right? Like no one is leaving the beacon chain. So if you have mini pools, you could exit them today, right? Or I suppose you could wait till Saturn launches and then exit it during Saturn and get a fast pass credit for it, right? There is an entry queue now. Unfortunately, everybody exiting seems to have re-entered. Maybe they were shuffling their validator sets, but now there's about a 40-day entry queue. But that's kind of it's not really a problem, and just kind of another thing to be aware of when we launch our validators under Saturn One. But I guess what should a node operator do now, right? Should they be exiting their mini pools? Should they wait till Saturn to exit? Does it matter? What happens if they don't exit their mini pool? Are they going to lose out on rewards, or can they keep their mini pools? Like what are the options here?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. So if you really um, there's some technical specifics in here as well, but really you should wait until Saturn is released before like before exiting your mini pools completely. Um, and the reason is so that you get these express queue tickets. Now, uh, how kind of so the express queue tickets mean that you're in a queue that moves faster, and that is to prioritize. That the whole point of the express queue tickets is really to um, support people migrating, um, uh, and well, sorry, so that we prioritize people migrating over people who are kind of to the um, new to Rocketpool. So um, so that's a thing that really that only happens after Saturn. So once we release Saturn, the express tickets have been allocated, and then after that you can then you can then go through the process. There is a little bit of game theory which I think some people in the community are kind of like deciding, and that is that if everyone is migrating, then the express queue tickets at the start are probably not that valuable, and they'd rather kind of like access the deposit pool ETH rather than waiting for their express tickets. In which case, they would exit their mini pool first and have that kind of fresh powder, if you know what I mean, to be able to come in and deposit. Um, so that is definitely an option as well. It depends on how long you want. If you want to, it depends on how aggressive you want to be. if you want to make sure you get some of that deposit pool ETH that's kind of like building up at the moment, then you'd probably exit straight away. If you're thinking about doing it over time, then I would wait until after Saturn, get those express queue tickets, and then those express queue tickets will be more valuable later on when you have more people joining Rocketpool and you want to be prioritized. And so yeah, that's kind of like the theory at the moment.
Yeah, that's a good theory. And then what happens to, and this will kind of allude to a couple of questions here, but so let's say maybe there's a node operator that's less engaged and they're not really tracking the Saturn launch, and and they just keep their mini pools. What are the consequences of just keeping your mini pool, right? I mean, eventually, as you were indicating, the RPL rewards go away, and is my understanding that your staked RPL on your old node from the mini pools would no longer be productive, and you're not really going to be able to free that previously staked RPL until you exit all your mini pools. Or those like what happens in that case if a node operator doesn't do anything, whether before Saturn or in the first couple of months of Saturn?
Yeah, so actually it depends on two things. So uh, the first thing is it depends on whether they are a Saturn Zero or like an 8 ETH mini pool. Um, if they're a post Saturn Zero node operator. So I think we'll try and cover this in the article that we're outlining at the moment. So they're kind of like if you are if you're an OG mini pool owner, so in other words, you're 8 ETH, but you're before Saturn Zero, you'll probably you probably have like a 14% commission or somewhere between 5% and 20% commission. Um, that pretty much all stays the same for you. Although in general, uh, you sh- you'll be earning more if you move to megapools, but you could still tick along uh, and operate your mini pool. Um, although in if you're although the RPL inflation will be reduced going forward. So you won't necessarily get RPL rewards in the future. So I don't think it happens immediately. I'm just triple checking that. Um, but um, basically RPL inflation will be not be given to node operators um, going forward, and so that would be one thing. RPL will be unproductive at some point. Um,
Yeah,
as I
I
said
seem to
before,
recall it being a couple of reward cycle delay after
yeah,
Saturn to allow a transition period. But yeah, I'm just doing that off the top of my head. I could be totally hallucinating on that.
yeah. Technically, it says it takes effect with Saturn too.
Okay.
So, um, so we it'll actually probably be Saturn, whatever we're calling Saturn,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
next release. It'll probably still be Saturn 2, but whatever the next release is, it'll be included in the next release. I mean, it is something actually we could change with actually depending on how we've done some prioritization, and I think like it could be changed as a setting rather than a release. But let's just say for now that at some point after Saturn One, um, the RPO inflation for node operators will go away. So yeah, RPO will become unproductive, or yeah, unproductive. But your mini pools will still tick along. But as I said before, you will earn more by moving to mega pools. If you are a the other thing is if you are a Saturn Zero node operator, so you have an eight ETH mini pool.
Yeah, 80th
Yep,
under 7-0.
8 ETH
Yep.
mini pool.
Yep.
Um, but your base commission is 5%. This is the one that basically you've got like a 10% commission, but if you stake RPL, you get up to a 14%. So actually, how that breaks down is you've got like this base commission of 5%, and then there's a bonus commission which is delivered through the reward tree process via version 10. And you get a minimum of 10% commission, but then if you're staking RPL, you get up to 14%. So that bonus commission process will go away at some point as well. And I think in the RPIPs, it's like 4 intervals after Saturn.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the one I was recalling. Yeah, okay.
yeah, yep. So it's 4 intervals after Saturn. So again, RPL rewards and this bonus commission will go away sometime after Saturn 1 is released. And so for those node operators, their commission basically goes from 10% to 5%. And so for them, it's definitely worth migrating over to megapools because the difference is the yield difference is much more. And so so that's the other thing as well. So it depends. So either way, at some point, it's a good idea to migrate over to megapools because you'll be earning more. Um, and for those two, mainly because of those two factors, the two factors of three factors. You'll earn more in megapools. RPO inflation is to node operators is going away, and this bonus commission is going away at some point.
Okay. And so this is let me kind of ask another question, right? So like many of the node operators might be in all conditions, right? They have, if they're an OG, they might have a very old mini pool, right? We understand there's been 3 mini pool delegates, right? Version 1, the original one, version 2, and the current one that the last mini pool since Saturn Zero we're using was version 3, right? There's no more mini pools, right? The mini pool queue is closed. The last mini pool formed, um, yeah, a few days ago, as the last one made it through the queue. In Saturn One, right? We're not going to open up the mini pool queue again. In Saturn One, there are no more mini pools, right? Mini pools are gone once Saturn One code is deployed, right? Um, there's a proposal, RPIP 77, that's has a sediment poll, and it looks very positive so far. And this proposal was to modify the smart node client, right? The majority, I would say, probably almost all of our validators run using the smart node client. And there was a proposal by Dr. Doofus that indicated that historically a node operator with a mini pool could either use the delegate version that they started with, or they could upgrade it, or they could set a flag to just always use the latest delegate, right? And there was a proposal out there to actually to reprogram the smart node to do two things. One, to I guess if the proposal goes through, right, to allow the smart node to just set that flag to always use the delegate, right, and to remove the ability through the smart node. The contracts are still there, but remove the ability through the smart node to roll back to the old delegates, right? Somewhat putting a little bit more of a like, I don't want to call you, like obviously the three reasons you mentioned are all kind of financial incentives as to why it's probably better for a node operator to transition from mini pools to a mega pool. And in doing so, they help the rETH holder because it's a more efficient staking model for them. Um, but this is like the first, I want to call it maybe a stick, that kind of helps through the smart node. I don't want to say force, but put more pressure on a node operator to start transitioning their older mini pools here. Um, and it looks like it's got strong support so far. I mean, I encourage anybody who hasn't seen this to go look at it, read it, understand, signal how you're thinking about it. But what are the thoughts if it goes through? Is that something we can get done before Saturn, or as part of the Saturn release, or would that have to come in the next smart node entry after Saturn? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, once it's like if and when it's voted in, uh, so I think it's a relatively small change. The the only thing is, I would say, like within the next few, it won't happen in the next few weeks because we've got to get the the vote up and all that sort of stuff anyway.
Yeah,
But but capacity at the moment is very thin because of getting Saturn out the door. Once we have Saturn out the door, there'll probably be a bit that we need to work on, just after that. But essentially, as soon as we get some capacity, we can put it in once it's voted for and passes and all that sort of stuff. Um, I actually, like, one of the key drivers for this is more to do with like underperformance. I think, wasn't it? Because um, Saturn One has this concept of Saturn One already has this concept of, let's say like a forced delegate. Um, like it gives you a window in which to upgrade. Sorry, it gives you a window to either upgrade or exit. So if you don't like the incoming changes, it gives you time to either exit your megapools if you don't want the change, or upgrade and then take advantage of the new features or whatever. So Saturn already has that kind of in place, but Minipools doesn't. Um, and I think one of the key drivers to this was the Pectra fork, where a whole heap of node operators went offline. And that's kind of, in some cases, that's part of the course for having a decentralized node operator set, is that some people are not always watching their node, and so there's a little bit of that happens. But if somebody is offline for a long period of time, that really hurts rETH, especially if they're kind of like a larger node operator. So I think a big driver for this is adding some sort of exit ability to be able to exit a mini pool if they go offline and are kind of underperforming for a significant amount of time. Essentially implementing the same sort of forced exit as will come in the next release after Saturn. And so, so I think that's a big driver there, is just to make sure that we balance this thing between, obviously giving node operators, the ability to stake their ETH, but if they are not meeting their responsibility as a node operator, that we can exit them to kind of like save rETH from their underperformance.
Yeah, I want to ask some follow-ups on there, but I see Joel has raised his hand to come up to the stage here and might have a question. Joel, do you have a question?
I do. I just quickly wanted to touch. I haven't listened to all of this, but I don't know if you guys touched on this. But the question pertains to investors who want to buy and hold the RPL token and trying to figure out the value accrual of just the RPL token. Is there a bull case to start buying RPL again? Just with having RPL's price bleed since mid 2023 now, and what specific Saturn One features do you anticipate will act as the price floor and a reversal of the downtrend that we've seen? So a demand basically for RPL.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, so it comes down to I think a couple of things I've kind of like mentioned is with RPL. So previously, RPL had a very indirect relationship with our kind of TVL. So in other words, if Rocket Pool succeeds, there's this indirect relationship that RPL will kind of succeed as well. And a big thing that the community went through, the community have been through like this massive tokenomic review process, and they come up with a whole bunch of options, and that's a lot of the stuff that goes into SAN is aimed at improving the tokenomics of RPL. So the key features for RPL kind of value accrual really is the first thing is the fee switch. So rETH holders at the moment, so they pay a 14% commission, and as of Saturn 1, 9% of that will actually go into a pool, which gets paid out to RPL staking node operators. And so, what I'm saying there is, and what that means is that as Rocket Pool grows, or even if we stayed the same, actually, but particularly if we grow, those fees then accrue to RPL staking node operators, and so there is a very direct relationship between our TVL or Rocket Pool protocol success and RPL yield, and so from a kind of like a value thesis, that's a very direct relationship. The other key thing, and I mentioned slightly before, was that currently RPL inflation is 5%, which isn't outrageous, but it's not exactly low. And so as part of Saturn 1, just after Saturn 1, the idea is to reduce that inflation from 5% to potentially as low as 1.5%, but it may end up being something like 2%, 2.5%. The reason why that's obviously good is that inflation is bad, and what that kind of does is it makes RPL a much better DeFi asset, because you're reducing. So with the inflation, you generally have to have like a 5% yield to be able to offset the inflation from RPL today. Whereas going forward, once we reduce that inflation, you'll obviously need far less yield to offset the inflation, and so you'll actually a much more productive asset. The other thing that is in the roadmap, it's not coming with Saturn 1, but it is coming with a further release. There is still actually a bit of a decision to be made in terms of if we're going to have further value accrual mechanisms in place. There are two that are kind of like signaled. One is like an RPL burn, and one is like an RPL LP type thing. But a DAO decision is pending on whether we keep to just the voter share thing, which is in place at the moment, or whether we implement one of those other mechanisms as well. So hopefully I've answered that question. But sorry, the other key thing there is that because of Saturn 1, our capital efficiency as a protocol increases. We also become a lot more feasible for institutional funds and all of that sort of thing, which obviously then means that we can scale a lot bigger than we even how big we are at the moment, and so that then creates a very big yield surface area for rETH staking node operators, and subsequently the value accrual.
Okay, I appreciate that. Great, thank you.
One other thing I'll add, in that previous website I shared, there's a FAQ section about RPL, and one of the things that's in there, it's kind of worth playing with a little bit of what if scenarios. It's got a link to a website, and I'll just read it out. It's rpl-fee-switch.streamlit.app. So once again, rpl-fee-switch.streamlit.app. But it's a little calculator there that can you can play with a couple of sliders about the value capture to RPL, and you can kind of use that to estimate what if you think of it this way, kind of what the price to earnings ratio might be of the RPL token once it starts earning ETH rewards. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that and read through it, and kind of engage in the discussions in that area. But excellent question, Joel. Lingers, I guess one of the other questions, maybe following up on this thing you mentioned about, the changes to the smart node to adopt the latest delegate, right? They could happen after Saturn 1. It's a smart node change, so maybe it makes sense to do it right afterwards. But it does kind of help, I guess, encourage the transition a little bit, and will give us some foundational items to do forced exits on underperforming nodes in the future, right? Part of that is following the delegates. But do you want to also talk a little bit about that we did in this latest Fusaka upgrade? We saw that there were some, away from keyboard node operators that maybe missed the fork or were underperforming, and we are decentralized. It's permissionless. We don't know other than just an address, but sometimes with a little bit of sleuthing, we can actually find the node operator. Has there been any movement to try to reach out to some of these, I'll call them underperforming nodes, or maybe try to just communicate to the broader community, hey, if you haven't checked on your node in a while, maybe now's a good time to do so. And anything we can do to kind of kick those node operators, or poke them a little bit to maybe look at their node and see why it's not testing at a high efficiency.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been kind of heads down on Saturn, so we haven't necessarily done much on it, but has been working with the community to get that message out there, and making sure that we, as you said, poke those node operators, and get them to upgrade. I know the community are putting in a massive effort to kind of communicate that and that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, I know Mav's working with the community to work through that.
Yeah, perfect. You were breaking up just a little bit there, but I think I got the sense of that there. Um, Let me ask another question about governance here. Folks may not be following the ODAO discussions on here, but just recently, one of the ODAO members, I believe it was Etherscan, they signaled that they're leaving the ODAO, and so there was recently a vote among ODAO members to acknowledge their request to leave. And I think I saw an events log this morning indicating that they finally did leave the ODAO. And so it's now at the minimum. There was an RPIP that said a minimum.
Okay, sorry, Ken. I think you cut out a little bit for me, but I think I got the question. So yeah, so Etherscan, we're working with Etherscan a little bit in the background to try and keep them on board. But they are kind of refocusing things for 2026. So they wanted to kind of adjust their resources for that. And so as you said, there is an RPIP that has kind of like a range. I think we aim for 13 members, between 11 and 13 members, and we're at the 11 now because Etherscan have left. So yeah, we're not. That's not like the protocol is going to work perfectly fine, and with 11, and we'd probably prefer it to be slightly more. At this stage, we just don't have the capacity to engage other people at the moment. But we have spoken to Rock Solid. They haven't said yes immediately. I think that they are very Rocket Pool aligned and all that sort of thing. I think they're just trying to assess what commitment they have to do with the ODAO, mainly because they want to make sure that they're prioritizing their own business, which is kind of fair enough. So we're definitely talking to Rock Solid, and to be honest, actually, we need to do like the one pager economics of running a node as well. A lot of things have changed since last time we sent out like this one pager to the ODAO members. So I think we need to redo that. In fact, I think you've done some work on that recently, Ken. Hopefully I can tap you to get some feedback on that as well. But yeah, so that we've got an updated sheet on what the roles, responsibilities, and costs are of and income for the ODAO is. But yeah, we'll try and get that up to date so that we can start approaching more people around the ODAO. There are a couple of people that the ODAO have been discussing, a couple of groups. So we will kind of essentially put a short list together with the ODAO and then start approaching them, give them the new economics, and then see how that goes.
Okay, good. Yeah, sorry I broke up there for a second here. So let me now switch topics a little bit and talk about kind of maybe a concern, or maybe it's like, okay, so we can see Saturn, we can see the launch of Saturn, but let's talk a little bit about rETH demand. One of the big things is marketing. The GMC and the team have jointly agreed to fund a marketing campaign. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and kind of some of the plans? And Mav, I encourage you to join in the conversation here. But so what's the plan for marketing? When, where, how, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I can give like the overview, and then maybe Mav can kind of like in some details as well. But the idea is that we've got obviously Rocket Pool has a big advantage in the sense that we've got a massive community, kind of grassroots sort of word of mouth machine, which is fantastic at our disposal. So we're definitely going to be using that to be driving kind of organic content quite heavily. The other thing that we've done is we've got two paid and then a whole bunch of we've got two paid things that we're doing. We've got like a bankless thing and the Defiant. We're working with the Defiant as well to put the main things around that are things like, I think there's like an interview on the Defiant podcast, and the same thing with bankless. And then just through their distribution channels, they're going to kind of like put out stuff around us as well. So there's a whole bunch of things for the paid side of things. And then there's organic. Actually, I should probably pass to Matt for the detail, but yeah, as you said, it's like a co-thing with the team and the DAO. And so so the idea really being that there'll be a bunch of organic stuff, a bunch of paid stuff. There'll be some. We are outlining an article which goes into pretty much everything we've been talking about on this call. Really, like if you are this person, then these are the things you need to be paying attention to. If you are this person, these are the benefits of Saturn. All of that sort of thing will be in that kind of article. We do that pretty much for every release. That's we've already started that process, and we've got like a bit of an outline for that. Yeah, maybe I'll switch to Mav to kind of go into a little bit more detail, but that's the general gist.
Yeah, so like Layers mentioned, there's a few different components to the marketing of Saturn 1. I guess they can probably be grouped into 5 categories. I'll try not to, I'll go through this pretty briefly because Layers also already mentioned some of it. But one part is the organic content that will be going out from the Rocket Pool owned channels. From there, as Layers mentioned, it would be great to get some community amplification of that. I noticed that there is already a POAP campaign, which has been launched by the community. If you're interested to join that and participate in the Saturn marketing, there is a thread under the trading channel called Saturn One. Where have my threads gone? Let me get back to you on that. The third component will be, I guess, lowercase p partners or ecosystem participants helping to amplify the fact that Saturn is coming and has launched. Most of that will happen around the announcement itself, of course. Similarly, for the paid angle, the bulk of that activity will be during and after the launch. There will be some in the run up, and there will be a range of different content that will be put out. So, starting out with media coverage, will also include some articles, guides, interviews. And the fifth main component is the additional kind of organic PR coverage. We do have some of that lined up already in terms of, for example, news sites that are wanting to cover Saturn. And then off the back of all of that, we would expect to see some additional marketing and media coverage of Saturn. As far as the timeline goes, I mentioned that most of some of those 5 pillars will be mostly around the time of launch and following it. There will be a build up about 2 or so weeks before, especially on Twitter. People tend to have pretty short memories, and we want to kind of compress and make some noise in a short period of time. Once we do announce the launch, then at that point, it will be a lot easier to communicate some of the main calls to action that we're expecting. So, as you've heard from Langers going through what Saturn 1 means, a lot of the upgrade is related to the node operator side. There will definitely be benefits to the liquid staking side, the RE holders, but they're not necessarily as significant as the impact to node operators. And the benefits that do exist are not, for example, as easily communicated as 4ETH validators, megapools, RPL fee switch, things like that. So while I guess from a technical perspective, Saturn is mostly a node operator upgrade, the outcome of the marketing campaign, as much as possible, is to achieve demand for rETH on the liquid staking side. So part of that will come through increased awareness in general of Rocket Pool. So, for example, if there is content out talking about the upgrade, as part of that, we have like a stake now call to action. This is Rocket Pool's biggest upgrade. It's never been a better time to stake with Rocket Pool. That doesn't necessarily mean that everyone who sees this content and sees, for example, that, oh, there's these 4ETH validators, there's an RPL fee switch. This may be someone who holds ETH and is interested in liquid staking. We will take every opportunity to not to not exclusively focus on node operators, and a lot of this more, I guess, high level talk about the protocol itself should lead to increased awareness, and then hopefully into liquid staking deposits. Part of rallying the ecosystem and partners as well. A lot of these partners integrations tend to be on the rETH side. So I suppose for the upgrade, having an opportunity or excuse to talk about Rocket Pool, that will help to create awareness in different DeFi communities in different circles as well. Just having a look if there's any questions in trading. No, just shit purchasing, so that's all good. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no, but
I think
yeah, I was gonna say I absolutely agree with you, right? Like the entire paid marketing and Twitter campaign, it really should be. I mean, we get on these calls because we're kind of the node operators in the core community, and so we spend talking a little bit about the technical and the node side, but it's really just one or two things. It's the it's either the RPL holders, when RPL price go up, and what's my return on investment, and when do I get ETH returns and yield and value capture, and either that or you're an rETH holder and you're more concerned about yield returns and efficiency and cost and performance, right? And so that the entire marketing should be based on those two individuals. Like, what can I do with my rETH? What does it earn? How does it benefit me? Because that's who the public is, or that's who our clients are. That's who who the marketing really should be geared towards, right? We don't need to include anything about the node operator side of the house on there.
yeah, and we will. I didn't specifically call out rock solid, but they will form a component of the marketing. Yes.
Oh yeah, that was one of the questions I think also from Dr. D. So that'd be excellent because yeah, a lot of times people will ask, what can I do with my rETH? And it's great to see that we've got a partnered vault solution for a kind of managed investment portfolio, or a vault investment. Let me ask one other question that kind of came up. There was a chat and kind of buried in one of the threads about the website front end, right? A lot of improvements over the years here, and that the website nicely, if you want to, if you either want to sell or acquire rETH, it now directs you either to the protocol or to CalSwap, whichever is better. And because now of the liquidity in the rETH contract, right? My anticipation is that the rETH price is basically going to stay on NAV, right? As long as we have a buffer in that rETH contract. Our bots, if there is ever a price indifference between the liquidity markets and the NAV price, they'll quickly resettle that back to on NAV as long as there's ETH in that rETH contract, right? Um, but there was thoughts about, well, could we accept other commodities besides ETH or wrapped ETH, right? And certainly you can do that in any AMM, or you can go to CalSwap and you can say, I've got whatever coin and I'd like to buy rETH with it, and it will find the best routing and priced in there. And I saw that Nick had replied back and indicated that there were some um, Australian laws that seem to be a roadblock for the team to build that in on the front end. And one of the questions that came up, this one by Hallelujah, was about, okay, well, if like recognizing that maybe the team couldn't build that front end, would the team be open to sort of a liquidity solution where other protocols could rebuild the front end, the user front end for it? I guess I'm also thinking like DeFi Saver or whatever, right? That there's multiple front ends to the protocols that run behind it. Any thoughts about that, or is the team just supporting just the official front end?
I think you're breaking up a little bit, but so this was as I understand it, it was being able to convert from other tokens to rETH. Is that correct?
Yeah, looks like the internet bugs are getting us. But yeah, it was basically providing other front ends to our ETH minting, correct? And as Hallelujah pointed out, liquidity. I always put a D in there, but liquidity was the example that he was using.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah. I'm in favor of integrations. I think it doesn't CalSwap and that sort of thing that already uses our protocol funds anyway to swap pretty much any token for rETH. I'm just wondering what the difference is.
I think that I mean, maybe not fully understanding the question, but I think maybe part of the emphasis here is that uh, the less friction we produce to people, meaning that let's say somebody has Coinbase ETH, or they have another staked ETH, they have EtherFi ETH. Is there a way that if we try to push our marketing and say, hey, you want to diversify your liquid staking token holdings, and maybe you want to sell some of those other LST tokens and acquire rETH tokens instead? Right now, through our front end, they would have to either use a different protocol like CalSwap, or they would have to convert their tokens of interest into basically Ether and then acquire rETH. And it sort of seemed like that two-step process could be made into one step. And I actually see that Hallelujah is joining us here. He'll be able to maybe phrase the question better than I. So feel free to speak, Hallelujah.
Work? I think so, right?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, cool. So at its most basic, I think the requested functionality would have just been handling wrapped ETH, not necessarily other LSTs, which also seems to be an issue. And so CowSwap can do it. It's just like I think the current front end lets you pick CowSwap, but then the input is still just ETH. So it was just me thinking out loud, if not necessarily just for this specific feature, but if we run into other legal issues with the front end, if taking the approach that Liquidity does, where we don't just have the single supported, like the single official front end, but just allow other people to host front ends, or like just take an approach of where someone else can build a front end for the protocol, if that would solve some of these issues.
Let me just relay that as best I can to Langers, because I think Langers couldn't pick up Hulululu. But whether we would consider taking the approach that Liquidity is taking, where there isn't one single official front end, but we allow other people to build a front end from the protocol. That's pretty much what the question is, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we don't like it. Are fine. The issue is that we are whether we want to necessarily or not, we are a focal point for Rocket Pool, and so it makes sense for us to have a front end that delivers that. But as we've kind of said, we are unfortunately bound by the regulations in Australia, which are improving. Like we've been working with the Treasury Department outside to influence new regulation, a bill basically into Parliament. So things are happening, but it's still very tenuous outside. So that's that. I mean, integration wise, I don't have a problem with, but we will always be like a focal point for Rocket Pool anyway. As I said, CowSwap already does it. Happy for other people to kind of like be able to stake directly as well. There's nothing stopping anyone else from integrating or a decentralized protocol. People can do that. People have done that. So yeah, in terms of front ends, happy for other people to build front ends. We'll always have a front end though, because we are a focal point for Rocket Pool. If we weren't there, people wouldn't. Well, people may not. I think it's quite key for growth that we are there. So yeah, I'm not quite sure how we can balance those two things.
Yeah, and I guess one of the other questions, and I this nuance I don't think I quite picked up on, but I guess one of the things is what about wrapped ETH? I mean, it seemed like the difference between ETH and wrapped ETH is so minimal. Yeah, are the Australian rules really that strict that if we supported wETH on the front end, that we would run afoul of that Aussie regulation?
As they stand now, yes, probably. The wrapped tokens in the regulation that we helped to kind of like design, it covers wrapped tokens, but it doesn't at the moment. Like the regulation doesn't have anything in it in terms of wrapped tokens being treated the same as the wrapped asset. So they are completely separate assets from like this. With wrapped ETH, there's a bit of an argument. Do you know what I mean? It could be argued. So there is some grounds. It's just we're not very firm legal footing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get it. I guess this was just, there's an ongoing discussion for those that want to kind of follow up on more. In the governance channel, there's a thread in there called website feedback, and it does seem to be kind of the topic of the day, which is, recognizing that we have to help support the demand for rETH, and one of the major interfaces, or basically first introductions to rETH is of course minting it. And whatever we can do to help improve that user interface and that friction there in the mint, and support more pathways to acquire rETH, just seem to be be better. But I certainly can feel the pain about regulations that are kind of outdated or not aligned, right? I mean, we've been battling that in the U.S. for quite a while. It's much better environment, and hopefully in the coming days we'll get even more regulatory relief from Congress. But still, it's always kind of difficult to work within laws, but still try to accomplish the mission. So, maybe this could be something to look at in the future here.
I have maybe a small add-on to the question. So I think the general issue with our front end in some areas is that we just assume a lot of knowledge. And it's quite hard for me to gauge where kind of that legal limit is. So would something as simple as actually acknowledging the existence of something else like house swap also potentially be an issue? Like if we had like a small info segment on the front end to say, hey, if you want to go from something else into rETH, you can go use CowSwap directly, use their front end, or use whatever. Would that already be an issue?
No, that's perfectly fine, because it will be we're sending them to the CowSwap branded uh, thing. I mean, so it's quite obvious that it's CowSwap that's making that swap rather than us. And so yeah, that would be perfectly fine. So we can definitely work with that. Definitely put that in the if you haven't already, put that in the website feedback, and it can figure out how to kind of like put that in there. We'll still make it look good.
Okay, thanks.
All right, let me also just kind of remind people, if anybody else has questions, come forward here. We've covered most of, we specifically said this was going to be an extended version, and we've gone about 90 minutes or so far. Let me just say, have just a few last topics here, but I certainly want to make certain there's time for any questions that other folks have, because Saturn is coming up and so important to us. But I guess one of the other things, and we recognize the team has been heads down on Saturn, and probably for the next month, it's going to be very long hours getting everything in place. I think everybody was a little shocked hearing the roadmap ahead and what needs to happen for launch, and recognizing there's a lot to do, and probably not unexpected. We need that extra week for timing issues, and maybe that's a little bit of safer launch window and better weather conditions without that rewards cycle coming up there, that it makes sense to reset the launch date. But the other thing that comes up is there's a lot to do. We'll celebrate. The team will probably get a little bit of respite after it launches, right? But there is then a lot of next steps, and I know Langers, you talked about maybe queuing the community a little bit for priorities. Is it forced exits? Is it RPL value capture? What's up there? Any thoughts about what you're going to do, or what the team's going to do after Saturn 1? Don't need to go in a lot of detail, but what do you kind of see as the next thing after Saturn 1?
First of all, I want to kind of applaud your dedication to the rocket metaphor. Yeah, so post Saturn, yeah, I think there'll be, from a team perspective, there's definitely going to be a time. I wouldn't say we're going to get. I think some of us do need some respite, but I think it's going to be quite intense after Saturn, because there's going to be a lot of what we call kind of like a hypercare period, where we just keep an eye on the stats and numbers and the processes, and make sure that everything's working really well. So that's definitely going to be quite intense, particularly let's say like the first 4 weeks after Saturn's launch. But we've already, so quite a while ago, I did a prioritization process with the community, and so we do have quite a good idea about what we're going to be doing next. It's mainly around the two kind of things, like what I'm calling redemptions, which is essentially rETH being able to, if there's, and this is a little bit up in the air, but rETH being able to exit validators if there is a strong request to exit. When I say strong request, my preference is that there isn't any withdrawal liquidity to fulfill there is not enough withdrawal liquidity to fulfill the exit, and so they would be able to exit validators to meet that demand. But there's a few ways that can kind of happen. So we need to go through the design process a little bit with that. So we've already started kind of. We've had at least one design workshop on redemptions to figure out. To be honest, the session was more, okay, these are all the things we don't know. But we will pick that up again. As soon as Saturn's out, we can start re-engaging those design workshops to nut out what the redemption process would look like. The other thing that's on the list as well is, again, this underperforming node operator thing. So basically being able to exit underperforming node operators. They're two separate kind of processes, but they're two processes that have been given a very high priority from the community. So yeah, we've got a bit of an idea, but I think post Saturn I'll have a lot more capacity to communicate that out to everybody. So we'll make sure that we say, okay, Saturn's out. This is what we're working on next, and this is what we hope to achieve. So I'll make sure that we can communicate that once Saturn's out. But that's really what we're aiming to work on, are those two features. Beyond that, I think the idea was to try to keep the next release quite small, so that we can get it out as quickly as possible. Saturn has obviously taken a long time, and partially one of the main reasons is because it's just absolutely huge. So we want to try to keep the next release as small as possible so that we can get it out in a more timely sort of fashion. So I think the next release will only include those two things and a couple of little things that were in the Saturn 2, or a couple of related things that are in the Saturn 2 scope, and then some of the other stuff that was in the Saturn 2 scope will be deferred and for like a Saturn 3 launch. So that's kind of what we're working on at the moment. I will confirm all of that once Saturn's out, and I'll make sure that I communicate that out to everybody.
Yeah, and there was a couple follow-ups on that. There was a couple of conversations. I think it came out of the GMC, which you mentioned you're doing some workshops with the team. You ever think about doing a workshop with the community? To kind of maybe help flush out some of these priorities. I certainly agree with the idea of keeping Saturn 2 very small and nimble, but there's other maybe non-smart contract updates like the adoption of MEV commit, maybe some integration of Vero or Vouch, or just some other things, and try to do a little bit of road mapping with the community.
Yeah, the kind of good thing once we have Saturn out the door is that, so redemptions, for example, ends up coming back to doing smart contract development, or smart contract design initially. The workshops will include Fornex and Thomas as well, but for their part, they get a bit freed up once Saturn is launched. Well, once Saturn is launched and we're through the hypercare period, they get a little bit more kind of capacity. So what I'm kind of like seeing is that there is a whole bunch of smart node side things that we could do as well that we can prioritize. So a workshop, or just again going through the synchronous communication was always a little bit difficult because there is never a good time to reach everybody. We can do multiple sessions. That might be a way of doing it, to do European and the US we should be able to cover most people that way around. But synchronous is always a bit hard. Async on the forum might be a bit better. So maybe we can do a post on prioritizing the smart contract side of things as well, so that we get a clear roadmap for the smart node.
Okay, sounds good. And then one last question as I look over the agenda notes. Again, we're kind of reaching the end of the scripted questions, and I know we've been going long, but I still want to invite anybody that has questions to kind of speak now. I'm sure we'll do a couple of these community calls before Saturn as we get closer and closer to the launch. But the one thing you hinted at, but I don't think we heard any update on, was a Medium article that explains everything in great detail about Saturn, especially for the node operators, what they should be doing, what they should be considering, what are the rules, what's the process, how are we going to do it, what are the commands, etc., that we need to use. Any update on that? And then second question is, any update on the testnet deployment so we can all play with Saturn on the real Hoodie testnet?
Yeah, so in terms of the article, as I said, we've outlined it at the moment. So it will be written essentially next week. And then we'll aim to put it out the following week. So a week to 2 weeks before the launch. With the testnet, we just need to finish up these BALSEC fix checks, and then I think the contracts are then code complete. So so our aim is to deploy the testnet next week. It might be like mid to late next week, but our aim is to launch the testnet next week. So the testnet, at the moment there is a devnet, so if you want to participate on the devnet, you feel free. There's a lot of testing going on that devnet, so it's a bit funky. Like I think we accidentally dissolved a couple of people yesterday on the devnet because we were going through and doing testing. So the testnet may actually be a better environment because it's a much more stable environment. So yeah, if you want to be involved in the Saturn testing, you can be involved on the devnet, devnet 6, or you can wait for the testnet deployment, which will hopefully be next week.
Yeah, perfect. And I, for one, and I played with a few of the dev nets. It's a little bit more difficult setting that up and getting the right stuff. It's we've all probably recalled when we played with testnet, and many of us still have Hoodie testnets. If you don't, the queue's very short. You could spin up your testnet node, get Hoodie, and kind of do the dress rehearsal of Saturn. So I for one am very much looking forward to that, and invite any other node operators that want to gain confidence in the new smart node and the new Saturn, to do that, to just quickly spin up some Hoodie validators and enjoy the transition in the coming week ahead, it sounds like. So excellent news. Anything else over Saturn, either Langers or Mav, that we haven't covered, or Mav, any things outside of Saturn that you want to announce to the community here at this time, as we're kind of reaching the end of today's very long and extended call?
From my part, no, I think that's good. I think we've covered pretty much everything. There's not really much more from my side. Matt?
Mav, anything from your end?
I think we're all good. Thanks, Ken.
Well, I don't see any other questions from trading here, and certainly appreciate everyone for staying with us, and for Langers and Mav, for you guys making yourself available here. Lots going on, lots to get caught up on here on Saturn, but sounds like we're still progressing at a pretty good pace, and I guess Langers, you'll let us know. I mean, it sounds pretty much we're now looking at February 16th as the launch date, but looking forward to the rest of the audits and the article. But I guess we'll hear the final anticipated launch date. What in the article here? I might have lost might have lost Langers here for it, but
Sorry, I think you cut out as you were speaking, and then I didn't know when you stopped.
yeah. No, I was
So
just
I think space is
yeah, I was
killing
just
us.
reconfirming the launch date. Are you going to send out a like an official notice of the new launch date, or are you going to wait for the article to do that? What are your thoughts about announcing that kind of broadly to the community about the new anticipated launch date?
Yeah, I'll put out an announcement about the new anticipated launch date.
Okay. Okay, well, again, I thank you both for spending the time with us here, and sorry for the little bit of chopped audio here. Hopefully, next time we'll we'll have a little bit better audio connection. But I really appreciate the time that both of you spent with not only me but the entire community, helping us get the latest with the Saturn launch.
Thank you, everybody.
All right,
Thanks, Ken. Thanks, everyone.
have a great day, everyone. Bye.